Good evening, everybody. We will go ahead and call this meeting to order, the annual meeting of the school board, Grand Forks Public School District Number 1, Monday, July 8th, 2024. It's 6 p.m., and we will start this meeting with the Pledge of Allegiance. For those in the audience, our flags are right here. Thank you for that. I'll be facilitating the meeting until we have a president seated. Mr. Anderson, would you please read the school board meeting norms this evening?
Absolutely. School board meeting norms are: be prepared, be on time, value and respect each other, exercise thoughtful deliberation and conversation, be professional at the board table and when visiting with the general public, speak up when the norms are not being followed, and advocate on behalf of students and keep the community in mind.
Thank you, Mr. Anderson, for that. We're going to pivot over to the podium here to recognize a couple of outgoing school board members. And first, I would invite Dr. Cynthia Schaab to the podium with me. Thank you for joining me. Dr. Schaab has been a passionate school board member, in particular about underserved and underrepresented populations. She has blended her daily work as the executive director of Global Friends along with her school board membership. She has always looked through our conversations through the lens of equity in terms of academics, transportation, child nutrition. She has been all about servant leadership, and she has been studiously prepared for all of our board meetings. Dr. Schaab, I want to thank you on behalf of the school district and the school board and the community of Grand Forks. We have a certificate of merit presented to you, and you also are entitled to a lifetime activities pass for Grand Forks Public School District. So if you have a few words to say, you're welcome to say that at the podium
yes.
At this point.
Thank you so much. And Cindy saw my badge, and I see it's here, and she said, you have been on the board a long time. So I already have a lifetime pass, but I didn't use it because I felt like I shouldn't use it because I was actively serving. So since 2011, and I took a 2-year hiatus when I was not reelected, but I got reelected later. So thank you so much. Yeah, I did prepare a few remarks, but you've said a lot of them. You know, I've been very proud to serve as a school board member, and it's really weird to be here and not there, especially in Jay's spot. I want to first of all thank the people who voted for me and put their trust in me. I'm leaving with mixed emotions, as you might imagine. I'm committed to service, as Dr. Brenner outlined, and equity, and I am truly an advocate of public education. Equity is top of mind for me, and public education allows opportunities for people to learn and grow, which is part of the motto of the Grand Forks Public Schools. No matter their income, their ethnicity, their religious beliefs, we serve people. As Dr. Brenner mentioned, my work with Global Friends is really all-encompassing. I barely made it here. So I find myself just really focusing on our new refugee families, and it's the main reason why I did not run for re-election. I want to say thank you to you as board and the administrators. One thing I think that I'm very proud of is that I think we've been following the school board norms as Josh read them. You know, we're respectful, and I think we can be proud of our conversation at the table, and that makes me happy. I want to give a special thanks to Cindy Johnson. I have served on the policy committee for I don't know how many years, but many. And really those meetings ran quite smoothly, and it was because of her due diligence and work with notes ahead of time to really get us to where we needed to be. So a special thanks to you, Cindy, for that work. I'm fairly confident that some administrators and maybe some board members would say that I've been paying attention to the day-to-day operations, maybe a little too much. And I'm not going to apologize for that because I think it's so important to be able to help somebody get on the bus and get to school in a timely way. And I do work with so many different families that I kind of know the day-to-day, and I'm in so many different schools with the families that I work with. So I've got a pretty good depth and breadth of the needs of families. So I'm not sure I'm in favor of the North Dakota School Boards Association push for non-operations. I think it's important to keep that in mind. And as Dr. Brenner mentioned, and then I'm going to wrap it up, my daily work definitely has affected my work on the school board. So that's been very key to me. So I thank you all for putting up with my questions, the administrators, for putting up with my questions. And I encourage all of you to continue to ask those hard questions, because it's because of that that education is what it is and grows and shapes our students. And thank you so much.
Thank you, Dr. Shab. Thank you for those comments. Next up, we have Maggie Barker. Maggie. When we sat actually in the beginning, 3 student school board members 6 years ago at the beginning of my tenure, it was to allow voice, presence, symbolism, and active participation on behalf of the people we serve, and the people we serve the most, and that would be our K through 12 students, all 7,400 of them. And when we set this up, we designed it so student school board members would serve 2 years on the board. So first year, just getting their feet under them, and then the second year, they would be certainly an active participant. Maggie has not fallen short of any of the expectations of a student school board member. She's a well-seasoned voice of young adults. She's prepared for meetings. She stays through the lengths of some of the meetings that we've had, and she, just knowing when she's got some exams the next day, she has sat through some awfully long board meetings knowing that she has those 2 or 3 exams that very next morning. She sees our school district through multiple lenses, as a student, as an athlete, as a co-curricular participant, and Maggie is on her way to Concordia to be celebrated on a soccer scholarship, correct? Academic scholarship, but you are playing soccer. And I suppose I'm violating some HIPAA things, but she has overcome a major knee injury to come back and compete at a high level and to be able to even walk on as a college athlete. Congratulations to you, and congratulations on your academic scholarship. And thank you so much for serving the board. The microphone is all yours if you would like it.
Thanks. Well, I didn't prepare much, but I just wanted to say thank you to all of you, and it's been a really great opportunity to get to serve on the board and speak my voice, and even just to hear and learn about everything that goes on, and like how much I thank you all for your dedication and attention and care to all the little things of the school and for representing everyone involved. So thank you. Thank you.
Thank you, Maggie. And next up is Ryan Elshami. Ryan. Thank you, Ryan. Thanks for being here tonight. I know you've got a busy schedule, and you're going to be on your way out of town here in not too many days. Ryan also, like Maggie, has been an articulate and studious voice at the board table. He's been called on to ask for his perspective in the middle of some pretty in-depth conversations that adults have, but it's always been helpful when a board member has turned to a student and asks, what do you think? It's your experience, not ours. And he's always been well prepared for board meetings and conversations. He's been the voice of students. He's been eloquent, as all of us were able to see at the New Valley Middle School groundbreaking. I think Ryan Elshami stole the show with the microphone, and deservingly so. And so this young man has been involved in co-curricular, extracurricular activities. He's a highly regarded student. And, you know, I never know if I'm going to say the name of your college that you're going. Is it Binghamton? Binghamton. Yeah. Binghamton in New York, correct? And Ryan is going there on a swimming scholarship. And as my 14-year-old son said, who saw you in your swimming briefs, he said, "I want to have a ripped stomach like that guy." Just want you to know you got a 14-year-old out there watching you. So thank you for your service, and the microphone is all yours.
Yeah, so I also didn't prepare anything, but I just wanted to say thank you to all of you for giving me the opportunity, for trusting in me to hold such a special role that I'm very thankful for, and that I'll hold, that I'll continue to be thankful for in future roles that I might participate in. So yeah, thank you for trusting in me, and thank you for the opportunity, and built some special relationships here, and so that's basically it. Yeah, thank you.
So to the families of Dr. Shab and Maggie and Ryan, thank you very much for your support as well. We appreciate the time you've allowed them to spend in the boardroom. Thank you for that. And now I'm going to transition to my other. Next on the agenda is the organization of the board. And Mr. Bombach, I would ask you to declare the 2024-25 school board, please.
Thank you, Dr. Brenner. It is my privilege to declare this board of the 2024-25 School Board of Grand Forks Public School District Number 1. And the cover member provided does list the membership of the board and the terms. But just to go through that, those expiring June 2026 include Josh Anderson, Dave Berger, Monty Gockler, Joel Larson, and Bill Palmasino. And the others newly elected or re-elected to the board, expiring term June 2028, include Amber Flynn, Jay Clevin, Dr. Eric Lunn, and Jeff Manley. There's the presentation of our board.
Okay, thank you. No action is necessary on that. Appreciate that. So now we'll move on to the election of the president of the school board. And let me just go through Robert's Rules of Order, the 11th edition. I will be calling, as the chair of the meeting thus far, I'll be calling for nominations. Any member may call out a nomination. No seconds are necessary. I will announce the name that's being nominated and ask if there are any further nominations. And then I will repeat each nomination in this way, in the manner of which they were called, until all nominations have been made. If there are no further nominations, I'll close the nominations process. And following that, I will ask if all are in favor. Whoever's in favor, please say aye. Those opposed say no. And if the ayes have it, then the president will be elected. And when there is more than one nominee for a given office, the candidates are voted in the order in which they're nominated. Okay? As soon as one of the nominees receives a majority vote, the chair declares the nominee elected and no votes are taken on the remaining nominees for that office. Are there any questions about the process? Hearing none, I would ask for nominations for president of the school board. Dr. Lund?
Well, given traditionally the president serves 2 terms and then passes the baton on to the vice president, and Amber has ably served as president for 2 terms, and so I will nominate Dave Berger as president.
There's been a nomination for Dave Berger as president. Are there any other nominations?
Dr. Brown, I would nominate Amber as president.
Okay, we have 2 nominations. We have Dave Berger and Amber Flynn. Are there any other nominations for president? Hearing none, we'll take them in the order in which they were nominated. The first is for Dave Berger. We will have a roll call vote for the nomination of Dave Berger as president of the school board. Cindy?
Yes.
Gockler? No.
Yes.
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 So the motion has carried. Dave Berger is the newly elected school board president. Mr. Berger, you're on the phone right now. Are you prepared to take over the meeting? Or do you want me to chair until we have a vice president seated?
I would first say thank you very much. I humbly accept the role, and I would ask, because I'm on the phone, if you wouldn't mind chairing the meeting until we have a vice president.
Thank you for that, Dave. Is there any opposition to me chairing until we have a vice president seated? Okay. Same process for vice president. I would take nominations for vice president of the board. Bill?
I would like to nominate Josh Anderson for vice president.
There's been a nomination for Josh Anderson. Are there any other nominations? Hearing none, we will take a roll call vote. Cindy, please.
Larson?
Yes.
Flynn?
Yes.
Clevin?
Yes.
Lund?
Yes.
Palmasino?
Yes.
Gockler?
Yes.
Anderson?
Yes.
Berger?
Yes.
Excuse me. 8 yes, 0 no, 1 absent.
Okay, motion carries. Congratulations, Josh, on being vice president. Are you prepared to take over the meeting agenda? Sure. Okay, thank you. I will help you along the way if needed.
So we will move on to item D, appointment of school board members and oath of office. Is this- Sorry, appointment of student board members and oath of office. Is this you, Dr. Brenner?
Yes, that's me. Adriana Tandy is at the table tonight, and I'm going to come over to your space where I have a printed oath of office for you, and I'll ask you to read it out loud with your microphone on, and then I would ask you to sign this.
I, Adriana Tandy, do solemnly swear that I will support the Constitution of the United States and the Constitution of the State of North Dakota, and that I will faithfully discharge the duties of student representative of the School Board of Grand Forks Public School District, Number 1, according to the best of my ability. So help me God.
Our second school board member is traveling, so she'll be seated at the first meeting that she can attend. She's traveling right now. So I'll turn it back to you, Josh.
Okay. Moving on to item number 3, approval of the agenda. Do we have a motion for approval?
So moved.
Motion by Joel, second by Dr. Lund. Any further discussion? Is that remind me, is that a roll call vote or?
Sure, we can.
Yes.
Yes. So we'll take a roll call vote.
Lund?
Yes.
Berger?
Yes.
Gockler? Yes. Clevin?
Yes.
Palmasino?
Yes.
Flynn? Yes. Larson?
Yes.
Anderson?
Yes.
8 yes, 0 no, 1 absent.
Okay. With that, approval of the agenda, we'll move on to item number 4, public comments. I do not believe we have any blue cards at this time. Is there anyone wishing to public comment? I do not see any, so moving on, we'll move on to item number 5, superintendent's recommendations for discussion. Number 5A, resignation of board member Monty Gockler. Is this you, Dr. Brenner?
And I'll defer to Business Manager Bombach.
Good, thank you.
Yes, thank you, Vice President Anderson, members of the board. We received the letter of resignation from Monty Gockler, not yet effective, but anticipated or effective July 31st, 2024. Those do come to the business manager, so I'm here to bring it forward to you. There's no school board action required by this, but you'll note too in the cover memo just that there's another agenda item later in this agenda where we will address the process for filling the vacant school board seat.
Okay. Moving on to item number 6A, school board regular meeting schedule for 2024-2025.
Okay, that would be me, Mr. Anderson. Thank you for that. Since we have our new format of our agenda, I'm not able to call out the page numbers, if you've noticed that. So I've had to do my tabs very differently. But somewhere in your packet, there is a memo from me regarding the school board schedule for 2024-25. And Cindy has combed through the calendar and made sure we didn't have any other meetings where it takes the superintendent out of town or some other things that might aggravate the overall schedule. So first meeting we're already having this evening. Please note that on Monday, July 22nd, we typically don't have a second meeting in July, but we'll have a special Zoom meeting starting at 6 o'clock. And we want to make sure that we can appoint committee members, so we have our Finance Committee, Superintendent's Evaluation Committee, all those pieces in place sooner rather than later. And also that meeting, well, I'm getting ahead of myself a little bit, but that will be the first look at the budget for 24-25 for the preliminary approval of that budget. Then we'll move into August. It'll be on the 2nd and the 4th Mondays. We move into September and September 9th and 23rd. October 14th and 28th, again, the 2nd and 4th Mondays. Please note on the 14th, we'll start an hour earlier because of Indigenous Peoples Day, and we never know if there's going to be an event scheduled where we would be asked to attend. So I know last year there wasn't, but there could be this year, so we want to be respectful of that. November 12th, this is on a Tuesday due to November 11th being Veterans Day. And then November 25th, we'll have our joint meeting with District 140 School Board, and that will be here in this room. And then we move into December 9th, we'll have our regular meeting, scheduled only one for December. And you can see in January, the 2nd and 4th Monday, February, the 2nd and 4th Monday. We get into March, this is a little bit different because of spring break, so it'll be the 3rd Monday and the final Monday of that month. And April will be typical 2nd and 4th Mondays, and May will be, the final meeting in May would be on a Tuesday because of Memorial Day. And then we get into June. The final meeting in June will be just one scheduled regular meeting, and then we thought we would just go ahead and put what the July anticipated meeting would be a year from now, a little more than a year from now. That will be July 14th. So the administrative recommendation is to approve the proposed meeting schedule for the Grand Forks School Board as outlined as above.
Any questions for Dr. Brenner or items of discussion?
I would just like to thank whoever did this for getting my personal calendar perfectly right. Thank you.
Anything else? Dr. Lund?
Just on July 22nd, I think I'm at about 20,000 feet in the air during that meeting. So I just want to make sure that all of a sudden there aren't 5 of us that are not here. You just may want to make sure that we do have a quorum for that meeting.
Anything further? If not, I would seek a motion for approval. A motion by Bill,
Second.
What you got, Jay? Go ahead.
second by
Thank you, Monty.
Mr.
On
Clevin.
the score sheet.
Who,
We will call roll call.
who was the second?
Second by Mr.
Thank
Clevin.
you. Flynn,
Yes.
Larson,
Yes.
Berger,
Yes.
Gockler,
Yes.
Lund,
Yes.
Tomasino, Clevin,
Yes.
Anderson,
Yes.
8 yes, 0 no, 1 absent.
Motion passes. Moving on to the next item on our agenda, item number 6B, the consent agenda. Do I have a motion for approval? Dr. Lund makes that motion. Second?
I'll second Josh.
Monty, second. Roll call vote.
Tomasino,
Yes.
Berger,
Yes.
Larson,
Yes.
Gockler,
Yes.
Clevin,
Yes.
Lund,
Yes.
Flynn,
Yes.
Anderson,
Yes.
8 yes, 0 no, 1 absent.
Next item on the agenda is item 6C, designation of the official newspaper of the school district. Is this
That one's mine.
Dr.
Yeah,
Brenner?
Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
As you can see in the memo, North Dakota Century Code, Section 15.1-09-33, parenthetically 34, requires school board to designate at its annual meeting a newspaper of general circulation as the official paper of the school district. The administrative recommendation is to designate the Grand Forks Herald as the official newspaper of the Grand Forks School District Number 1.
Any questions or discussion? If none, is there a motion? Bill makes that motion,
Second.
second by Monty. Roll call vote.
Gockler,
Yes.
Berger,
Yes.
Lund,
Yes.
Tomasino, Clevin,
Yes.
Flynn,
Yes.
Larson,
Yes.
Anderson,
Yes.
8 yes, 0 no, 1 absent.
Motion passes. Moving on, number 6D, appointment of Ben Franklin Elementary School principal. This is Matt.
Yes, thank you, Vice President Anderson, members of the board. It's my honor today to recommend Stacy Skarprud as the new principal of Ben Franklin Elementary School. Stacy brings 23 years of education experience to the table in her role that I'm recommending as the Ben Franklin principal. She actually started her student teaching at Ben Franklin Elementary School, and so her journey began, and hopefully through years to come will end at Ben Franklin Elementary School as well, too. So she brings many years of experience from a teacher, instructional coach, literacy specialist, mentor, running the mentorship or the resident teacher program, and mentoring teachers throughout her time in that role as well. And so she brings a variety of roles and expertise to this position. She brings a wealth of knowledge when it comes to curriculum development, the PLC process, and the overall teaching and learning experience process. So I'm very privileged to recommend her for your approval. She brings a strong background in mentoring and coaching staff, working with students. She stood out to our interview team for her approachability, her positive attitude, her student-centered approach, and her strong communication skills that she outlined in her interview process. Overall, we had 11 individuals that served on the interview team. We had a total of 11 applicants, 3 of which we interviewed, and Stacy rose to the top, and I'm very privileged and honored to recommend her today. So my administrative recommendation is to appoint Ms. Stacy Skarprud as the Ben Franklin Elementary School's principal for the 24-25 school year. And I have all the information listed below for salary and benefits and all of that. So I will take any questions, and Stacy Skarprud is here this evening. If you would like to hear from her, she is here as well too.
Okay. With that, any questions and/or Dr. Lund?
No concerns with this. I'm wondering, I'm trying to think back previous principalships. is 11 a pretty good candidate pool? It seems like pretty good compared to some of the last ones we've had, and I'm just wondering your thoughts and if that's a good sign.
I was pleased with the number. I know from previous experience, if you get into double digits for a principal role, I feel like you're sitting pretty good with applicant pools. So,
Any other questions or items for discussion? Okay. With that, the administrative recommendation is to appoint Ms. Stacy Scarproot as the Ben Franklin Elementary School principal for the 2024-25 school year at a salary of $110,396 with an education factor of 2,900 and a school factor of 2,000. Do I have a motion? Motion by Bill. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second, Monty. We'll take a roll call vote.
Clevin,
Yes.
Berger,
Yes.
Larson,
Yes.
Palmesino,
Yes.
Lund,
Yes.
Flynn,
Yes.
Gockler,
Yes.
Anderson,
Yes.
8 yes, 0 no, 1 absent.
Motion passes. Thank you and congratulations. With that, we will move on to item 6E, consolidation grant application for 2024-2025 federal title funding. I believe this is Mr. Bakke again.
yes, thank you, Vice President Anderson, members of the board. It is that time of year where I get the opportunity to present to you our consolidated grant application. And so I have prepared some slides up on the board for you to see, and in your packet you can certainly go through and review those. I'll give you a little bit more detail as far as each item goes as we go throughout this. But just remember, title funding is a federal grant fund that we receive every year. Each one of these items have a distinct purpose and have a distinct role that they serve within our budget and within the services that we provide for our students. And so I'll start off with our levels, our 24-25 federal title levels. One thing I will mention on these is these are estimated numbers. We have not received our final allocation quite yet. We anticipate getting that from the state level here within the next month or so, I would anticipate. Everything kind of got pushed back from the federal government when they were making decisions, and that got later and later. And so that has pushed back those amounts obviously down to the state. So once the state gets their allocation, then they disperse it through their funding formula, and then that disperses out to the school districts. And so we don't have those final numbers quite yet. So these are estimated numbers. These are our allocations right now. If you're comparing them from last year to this year, the one in the yellow is our funding levels for the 23-24 school year, and the ones in the white are the ones on the left column are the upcoming school years 24-25. So just for quick math, for those of you that maybe don't want to do that quick math real quick, Title I is actually a decrease of $39,000. Title II is a decrease of about $3,800. Title III, yet to be determined. We don't have those numbers yet, and so we're still waiting on those numbers. I think a lot of it was a result of the state not having a director at that role yet, and so that was just recently announced, and so we anticipate having those numbers fairly soon. Title IV actually saw a big increase of $71,000. And so overall, our total, we saw an increase of about $28,000 across our title funding for next school year. Oh yeah, go ahead.
I'm sorry, Matt, can you refresh my memory? How do you derive those end numbers, like the Title I end number, and so we know there's a decrease to this coming year from last year? Can you just refresh my memory, like how those numbers come to be?
About?
Yeah, please, thank you.
So actually, it's an allocation done at the state level. They give us, so what they do is they look across the state gets a pot of money, and then they run your demographic numbers as it relates to poverty numbers, free and reduced lunch numbers, and there's a whole formula that runs, and then that brings out what our allocation amount is based on our free and reduced lunch numbers, our poverty numbers, our enrollment. All of that is calculated into what our district allocation is. And so in comparison, if our numbers go up and another school districts go down, we may see an increase versus a decrease. Vice versa may happen as well. And so it just depends at the state level where those numbers are. Again, it all comes from the same pot of money. It just depends on where, who gets that share of the pie per se. So does that answer your question?
It sure does. Thank you very much. I just didn't remember how that came to be, so thank you.
One other thing to note is also our equitable shares in here. We have private schools in town, and we, per federal funding, we have equitable shares that we also have to account for as well. So some of this funding, like when we look at Title I, that $3 million is not just our funds, it's also our equitable shares with our private schools in town. They have a share of that as well too. So.
Sure, so that's why we support sometimes Holy Family or St. Mary, or not St. Mary's, but
Holy Family, St. Mike's, yep.
Yep, thank you. Okay,
yep.
Thank you.
And not all of our non-publics actually opt in to receive that funding. Some actually decline the funding due to the paperwork and some of the other additional steps that need to be taken. So, yep.
Mr. Clevin, do you have a question?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, thank you. Is the allocation to the district as a whole, and then the district has our own formula for distribution?
Correct. So, and actually I'll break down Title I dollars actually do go down into the schools. Title II and Title IV are simply the district funds. So Title I is the only one that does break down into the schools. Every other one is a district allocation amount. And we use different formulas to kind of provide that out as far as that goes. Through Title I, it's called the rank and serve process. And so it's a process that we have to go through at the state level. We actually send it into the state, they approve it, and then that determines our disbursement out into our schools. And so I'll go over those funding numbers here, those allocation amounts here in a minute. And one thing you will see when we get to this, and I'm getting a little bit ahead of myself, is you'll see a school that previously was on Title I funding that now is back on. So South Middle School for years was on Title I funding. Last year did not meet the criteria, and this year did meet the criteria, so they're back on receiving Title I funds. And so again, with those fluctuations in enrollment, free and reduced lunch numbers, poverty lines, all of those, that fluctuates schools that are able to get that funding and schools that are not able to receive that funding. And so that changes from year to year.
Yeah, can I, on Title III, which is for non-English speaking
Correct.
students, it's only 23,000. Is there a push to get more money from the state on that? As other districts said, hey, we got more immigrants coming in working. I mean, last year I know you were hit with numerous additional kids that showed up during the school year.
And so just a reminder on this is all federal funding, so it actually comes down from the federal government. And so because our state has a low percentage of ML students in comparison to the rest of the nation, our funding as a state is much smaller, which then as a district is much smaller as well in comparison when you look at the big pot of money. And so, yes, we're seeing an increase in our district and across our state, but in comparison to Texas, Arizona, California, other states, we are not seeing the increase that they may be seeing.
So the way to get more money then it would be for us to go after our own legislators during the session to say, hey, you want more of a workforce coming into the state, you have to help us out with some of these expenses.
Yep. Because these are all federal dollars that come, and they go through the state down into the district, but again, the state gets one pot of money and then disperses it from there. Yep. Good questions. Okay, so then just breaking down some of the percentages for you, or just breaking down some of the programs. So the first one is Title I. Reminder that Title I is the main goals for Title I have listed on the left, but basically it comes down to high quality education and opportunities for students that typically don't have those opportunities. And so really Title I is about providing equitable services for our students, all students across our district. And then on the right hand side you'll see a lot of it is derived by the free and reduced lunch counts and the percentages that allow them to be funded at. And so you'll see on the right hand side our school districts that are our schools that receive Title I funding, what their free and reduced lunch percentage is in comparison to the top one, which is the Grand Forks Public Schools overall. Now, to qualify for Title I funding, you need to meet one of two criterias. You either have to be free and reduced lunch above that our district line, which again, our district line is 35.29, so you have to have free and reduced lunch above that, or you have to meet it by being above the grade span. So for instance, when we break down the grade span and we look at elementary, if the grade span for elementary is 35.29, I'm just using the district average, and you're above that, you would qualify in that category. But you may not qualify in the district category. So you can qualify either way, whether you're above the district amount or by the grade span amount overall. And that's, as you'll see, South is just barely above that the district average, but they are quite a bit of ways above the grade span wise as well too. So, and again, a reminder that this is all taken from the 23-24 percentage of free and reduced lunch, not this obviously school year. So, okay. So here's the allocations as it looks to Board Member Cleven's question. Here's the allocations by building level, and then we have our district reservations as well. And so when we look at our Title I funding and allocations, this is what is broken down by schools. And again, you do see St. Mike's and Holy Family on there as well because of that equitable share portion that they are entitled to. Then our district reservations, you'll see on the right-hand side, we have administrative costs, we have our in-district costs, we have our indirect costs, excuse me, neglected and delinquent funds that we provide, our homeless, and then our family engagement. And I'll break some of those down even further for you so you kind of understand what those are being used for, as well as what percentages we have to fund those at. But just for our administrative costs and our neglected and delinquent funds, our neglected and delinquent funds primarily go to RMAC, and that's to help run their operations and their program over there. As well as then our admin costs. This helps cover our grant management coordinator, our para certification process. Per Title I, you have all your paras that work within your Title I school-wide programs need to be highly certified and qualified, and so that helps run that process. Then we have various supplies, and we also have some professional development travel in those lines as well. One thing you'll see that is maybe new to you, maybe not, but in the district, for years, we always claimed indirect costs. And then we took about a 2-year hiatus from that, mainly due to funds called ESSER, in which we had funds that were available and able to kind of cover some of those costs. And now our indirect costs are now coming back into play, which was always typically there. We just kind of took a couple years off of that. So some funded activities through our Title I. You'll see a long list on the left-hand side there, and these are made by schools. They determine what their needs are at their individual schools and where their funding may sit. And so you'll see really a wide range of different things that are funded, from Title I coordinators to deans of students to class size reduction, behavior interventionists, social workers, you name it. We have some para hours that are done to provide specific interventions, professional development training, supplies, equipment, various things that these funds support. As part of the requirements through Title I, we do have to set aside 1% of the funds for family and parent engagement activities throughout the district, and that again is also dispersed down into the schools and provides that for family events and school-wide activities throughout the district. And so our overall allocation is just south of $31,000 across the district. And again, that there's equitable shares to that as well too. So again, that does go to St. Mike's and Holy Family as well. Okay, funding set aside for homeless. So set aside for homeless, this is actually a range. We're required to set aside 1% to 5%. Currently, the district sets right around in the middle of that, 3.5%, and which equates to $108,432.56. These funds support educationally related services for children in shelters and other locations where homeless children may live. And so really the funded activities are, we have an individual that is, their sole job in our district is to provide those supports and services for our our homeless children and families. And so we have our homeless liaison. It also helps provide for transportation and then basic need supplies for our students and families that experience homelessness. Part 2, what I call Title 2, Part A, I call this our professional development. This is a way to basically increase and improve instruction within the classrooms and across our district. And so you'll see our overall allocation of $722,000 across our district. The funding activities include instructional coaches, district administration, our chief academic officer, whose sole job is to look at instruction and how is our instruction being impacted across our district. And then we have staff professional development, our AVID training, counselor training across our district. We have a ton of different trainings that we provide, and this is really focused on how do we continue to build up our instruction across our district. That's what this funding is all about. And so you'll see that these FTEs are spread across multiple funding streams. They're not just Title II. They may come from a little bit from Title I, a little bit from Title II. They may also come from different grants that we receive from the state level. Our behavioral health grant, our IDEA B grant. So multiple sources that sometimes come into play to fund these positions. Our Title III, this is primarily targeted for our ML students and our ML families, really to assist all of our limited English proficient children and making sure that they have the support and the needs met in order to provide the equitable education for them. And so, again, allocation is to be determined, but at this point I would anticipate something around that $23,000, very similar. It might slightly go up, but I think our overall allocation at the state level went down a little bit. So we'll see kind of where that number lies when we receive that. So our overall funded activities that we look at our district level is our ML coordinator professional development. Reminder that this last school year, was the first year of us having an ML coordinator, that was their role and responsibility. And even last year, her role and responsibility was not just ML coordinator, because the teacher that came to fill her position did not arrive until mid-year. And so this will actually be the first year of having a full-time, beginning of the year, end of year ML coordinator, and we're excited about that opportunity, especially as we see the influx of ML students and families in our district. And so that'll be a really important role that she'll fill. The other things we fund is the ML summer school tutor for high school students, instructional supplies, and then registration costs for staff, professional development, and trainings that we send our ML staff to. Title IV, Part A. So really, Title IV, Part A fills 3 buckets. And these goals are broken down by those buckets. And the overall allocation, as you'll see, is an increase of $71,000, which was a really good chunk increase at the national level. We saw a huge increase at the national level, and that dispersed down into the state level as well. But basically those 3, what I call 3 buckets, are one area is well-rounded education, so really looking at programming such as college readiness, STEM, career counseling, music, arts. The one unique thing about Title IV is in 2 of the buckets, there is a requirement that you have to spend at least 20% or more. And then in the last bucket, it's saying you can't fund above this percentage of equipment. And so there's some requirements with it and some of those moving pieces that we have to be aware of, but well-rounded, you have to spend at least 20% of your allocation on the well-rounded education bucket. And we use it for AVID director and coordinator, district and building specific, and then after school clubs. After school clubs is one of our equitable shares components. So that's what the non-publics utilize their funds is for their after-school clubs. Supporting safe and healthy students, again, that also is a 20%. We have to be 20% or above. Our funds have to go towards that area. And this is really about providing mental health, drug and violence prevention training on trauma-informed programs and just continuing to build our safe and healthy schools. And so we fund primarily our MTSS coordinators and our mental health coordinator in those funds. And then the last bucket would be the use of effective use of technology within our buildings. And again, there's a 15% cap on spending for devices, equipment, software, digital content. We cannot go above that 15%. And so you'll see pretty minimal amount that's spent in that area, primarily used for after-school robotics and iPads. And when I say that 15% accounts for not only ours, but also the equitable shares. And so primarily the technology is coming out of the equitable shares. The district, Grand Forks Public Schools, doesn't typically use a lot of dollars within the technology realm for this. I know I went through a lot of that fairly quickly. Do we have any questions? One other thing I just want to remind you of is that our supplement supplant rules still apply in this case. So with any federal grants, we have our supplement versus our supplant rules that come into effect. And so we have to always be aware of that we can't be supplementing something that we currently fund in the general fund with these funds. And so we have to be very careful of those supplement supplant rules. The way I kind of explain it is the district supplies the ice cream, and the ice cream within your dessert. I really like ice cream at the end of the day, so we support the ice cream, and then any of the sprinkles or the caramel or the chocolate, the topping that goes on top, that's where title funds come into play. And so the general fund supports the main bowl, and anything that goes on top comes from title funds. So.
Any questions for Mr. Bach and Mr. Clevin?
And these are all allocated by some predetermined formula.
Correct.
So
yep.
the amounts may change, but they don't change by whimsy. They're a prescribed process.
Correct. So it's called the title rank and serve process that we go through with the state. And so basically what we do is we take in our free and reduced lunch counts, and we put those into a spreadsheet, and it's a state spreadsheet that is sent to us, and we fill it in, and then based on those numbers and what it calculates out determines who's eligible, as well as it determines what the funds are. And then we can alter it a little bit with the weighted per pupil amount, but that just allows us to adjust it slightly. The overall variation of it is built into the formula.
Thank you.
Yep.
Any other questions?
Matthew, I have a question. So if you were funding like a sources of strength, which I know is in the district, would that be something that comes out of this funding criteria?
It could, yeah, it could. So it could come out of supporting safe and healthy schools. It could potentially come out of well-rounded under Title IV. If it was a school initiative, it may come from Title I, but that really doesn't go to the goals of Title I. So I would say it would be more under the funding criteria of Title IV. Yep. Yep. Yep.
Other questions for Mr. Bach? Dr. Long?
Is it an accurate statement to say that there are probably a lot of these type of programs that aren't run by federal dollars, that we supplant them themselves? I mean, it's not like all of this is all just federal. There's probably local support of some programs within our school district who could potentially have qualified for federal dollars, but we chose to do it a different way.
Absolutely, absolutely. So our general fund picks up certain programs versus new initiatives that we maybe previously hadn't funded that are now funded through title programs. Yeah. But one thing with the supplement supplant rule you got to be very careful is if your general fund has picked it up previously and now you decide you're going to try to pick it up under title, that's really against the supplement supplant rules, and an auditor would flag that immediately. And that we'd run into auditing issues, which Brandon and the business office don't like, so.
Further questions? Mr. Clevin?
One more.
Yeah.
When will you know final title fund allocations?
Yeah, great question. I typically would like to have that answer now, but we don't have that from the state level, so I would anticipate probably in the next month we'll get those final allocations. The final application actually needs to be submitted to the state by the end of August, and so we would have that before that point. Otherwise, we wouldn't be able to fill out the final budgets and submit that in time. So, and that's what, so today, the board recommendation based on that is that the administrative recommendation is to approve the 24-25 consolidated grant application for GFPS based on these amounts identified, and then to authorize myself as the authorized representative to submit the final application to move forward with this.
Okay. Any further questions? If not, do we have a motion to approve the administrative recommendation? Joel has made the motion,
Second.
second by Monty. Take a question, Dr. Lund.
Are we giving him the authority to make some minor changes? Because the to be determined doesn't look very good on a grant application. So it gives you the authority to make those changes.
And then I would report back to the board once we have those final numbers at a later date. Typically, I provide an update in August after we receive those final numbers.
Okay. Does that go with your motion? Second? Okay. Okay. Roll call vote.
Berger,
Yes.
Clevin,
Yes.
Lund,
Yes.
Flynn,
Yes.
Palmesino,
Yes.
Larson,
Yes.
Gockler,
Yes.
Anderson,
Yes.
8 yes, 0 no, 1 absent.
Okay, motion passes with that. Moving on, item number 6F, selection of method for filling board vacancy. I believe this is Mr. Bombach.
Yes, thank you, Vice President Anderson, members of the board. As mentioned earlier, we have a resignation to the school board. That's from Monty Gockler, and a vacancy will then exist. Per North Dakota Century Code, we must fill that vacancy within 60 days by one of two methods, either appointment or special election. What we have also included here is reference to policy BBC, which articulates a suggested selection process. So I would just like to point out there are primarily three ways you could take this. The school board has the authority to directly make an appointment. They also have the authority to go to a special election, but where the administrations make a recommendation is to follow the policy's selection process articulated in policy BBC, which is a process to solicit application to the school board from which the school board will choose and make an appointment from. So this, as I mentioned, articulated policy BBC. The administration is recommending this with some specifics, that the board establish a 2-week application period beginning Monday, August 5th, 2024, and ending with applications due at 4 p.m. on Monday, August 19th. And with this, then the anticipated schedule thereafter would be that the appointment would be on the agenda of the board meeting on Monday, August 26th, and the appointee would be seated as early as September 9th, and then they would carry out that seats term all the way through June 2026. So just to clearly articulate, the administrative recommendation is that the board follow policy BBC for the selection process to fill board member Gockler's vacancy whence effective beginning July 31st.
Any questions or discussion? Mr. Clevin?
I assume there's been other appointees, and if so, is this the policy that's been traditionally followed?
I'll go ahead and respond to that. Our old policy is basically the same as what's being recommended, kind of that middle of the road. Let's take applications, let's see who's interested, perhaps respond to some questions, and then the board can have a true picture of who's actually applying for the positions. Thank you.
Other questions? Mr. Brombach?
And just was going to add that on that policy, it has an adopted date of May 10th, 2021. So I don't know that this was in place at the time of any prior vacancy such as this.
Other questions or items? If none, Dr. Lund?
I would make a motion, we approve using policy BBC and BBCE, the exhibit for the upcoming appointment of a new board member.
Okay, we have a motion. Do I have a second? Doctor?
And may I ask for a little articulation around a specific time frame, as we have a window within that policy of 2 to 6 weeks? Would that recommendation or that motion include the dates included in the cover memo?
Absolutely. Thank you for clarifying that for me.
Okay, we have a motion.
I'll second.
Second by Mr. Clevin. We'll take a roll call vote.
Larson,
Yes.
Gockler,
Yes.
Flynn,
Yes.
Lund,
Yes.
Palmesino,
Yes.
Clevin,
Yes.
Berger,
Yes.
Anderson,
Yes.
8 yes, 0 no, 1 absent.
Motion passes. Okay. Moving on, number 6. G, consideration of land swap adjacent to Career Impact Academy site. Mr. Bombach.
Yes, board members, I apologize for not including a graphic depiction of this area that would kind of help keep some of this straight, but the conversation has been at the board table for quite some time now, nearing a year. In the cover memo, it provides just a little bit of history. We're talking primarily about 2 parcels that were gifted from the City of Grand Forks and the city's Job Development Authority to the school district for the development of the Career Impact Academy. Alongside 42nd Avenue are the 2 parcels in question here, one privately held, that's 1215 North 42nd Street, and then one that belongs to the school district on the corner of Gateway and 42nd, which is 4251 Gateway. Previous conversations at both Finance Committee and the school board have approved a land swap agreement after establishing equal values of those properties and having gone through and pursued a appraisal on the properties to do so. The agreement just has not been executed, primarily because the last agreement in front of you stated the owner at the time, which has now changed. Betis Corporation, Betis Development Company is the new owner of the former bank parcel, which is 1215 North 42nd. And they have, you may have seen actually, driven by, they've already completed a portion of the agreement, which is to demo that old building and restore it back to Greenfield. They have yet to seed it, but they will finalize that stage of it. But they're prepared to execute the agreement that is attached here if it's to your agreement. So administrative recommendations to carry out what we had already discussed, just with minor changes to the agreement itself, including the change of the owner.
Any questions? Mr. Clement.
Has this agreement gone through the whole circle? Sorry. Has this agreement gone through the whole circle of legal review, so everything's final except for the clerical change of the name of the owner?
Yes, absolutely. Appreciate that question. Our attorney, Laura Cobb, has reviewed this both the first time and the second time and been involved with the conversations. And I'll take a quick liberty of mentioning, I meant to, that all legal fees, closing fees, and appraisal fees are going to not be paid by the school district, but rather by the Betis Development Company.
Other questions?
I have a question. It appears as though there's 3 people involved in this and that Betis doesn't own it yet. So is it your understanding that Betis will own it at closing and then we'll do another closing? Because they're not technically the owner. They're referred to as the owner, but is that correct?
Thank you for the clarification. Yes, they're anticipated to be the owner at the time of our closing with them.
So is it a wholesale deal or is it not?
I'm not sure. You might have to define it for me.
So wholesale would be Ross Hubner assigns the rights to purchase the property to Betis, and then there's really not a closing. There's sort of like 3 closings, and then the owner gets an amount of money without selling it to someone. They basically find a buyer for the property. So I'm just curious if it's designated as a wholesale from Laura's opinion, or like, is there going to be separate closings? More so because if it's a wholesale, then it has to be designated as a wholesale.
I'm a little unsure. I would defer to who you just spoke of, Laura,
Yeah.
our attorney, just to clarify that, and be happy to do so.
Yeah. I think my only concern is that it's not technically owned by Betis, so I'm just, which I'm sure she's reviewed, but I'm just confused as to how, they're a developer, but they're not the owner of the property. So I'm just confused as to how that all works.
I'll convey those questions and go to our attorney with those and get back to not only you, but this body in Friday Focus. I'm happy to follow up on that.
Well, I know it's a recommendation for action, so I don't want to certainly delay the process, but just don't know.
Mr. Clevin, do you have something?
Amber,
Yeah.
I don't want to take your floor time.
No, you're fine.
All right, thank you. Do we have time to delay? Because that ownership thing seems like kind of a big deal.
Yeah, I think time has been of the essence here. Funny, right? We've been talking about it for a year, but this is how they go. So I, depending on your comfort level, would, encourage being able to meet their timeline, but definitely want to make sure I get the question answered.
I know that in our last one in 2023, like it was stated that it was currently under contract with Betis. And I believe that Laura has done her due diligence. My concern is that this is not like layperson information. And so North Dakota law changed last year that if it is a wholesale, it will require a real estate agent to represent both parties. And it has to be disclosed as a wholesale. So I just don't know the background of how the contract is written I just want to make sure that we're able to do this.
Well, we would certainly follow state law.
Yeah.
And so if this is approved, but the state law would prohibit the execution of, we would be back
Yeah.
at this table.
Yeah.
So I will follow up on the question and make sure that we're in compliance.
I mean, do we have until July 22nd? Like, could this be an item on the 22nd?
Well, my
Or is that-
conversations leading up till tonight was that this date was already kind of out a little bit.
Yeah.
So I'm responding to their timeline, and there seemed to be some pressure on that.
By the developer?
Well, timeline, yes, I'm represented by the developer. I think just the way all pieces are coming together, all parties involved.
So on, I don't know what the board packet number is, but so on or before June 25th, the objection date, is that a date that we would have had to bring any concerns before then?
So the final item, the way that Laura Cobb had advised on meeting timelines too, the 23, the final item listed, is approval contingency.
Mm-hmm.
And so the document was executed just with a contingency clause, knowing that it would have no effective power until this body approved it. And that satisfied the development corporation or the company to begin what steps they need to with knowing full well that it's not approved until this body approves.
I would be fine approving it with the contingency that it's not a wholesale exchange.
Okay.
Dr. Long?
I was wondering if there was a way to approve this contingent upon you having a discussion with Laura to make sure that everything is clear and legally free and there's no issues, which I think is similar to what you're saying.
Okay, can we take a motion of that, or is
Well,
there further question or discussion? Jay?
Question, this probably directed to Amber. If it's not a wholesale, the land has to get transferred or somehow be put into ownership of Betis, then our agreement can be executed, because there's only those two parties involved, correct?
I believe that's how it's written. It just, I think it gets tricky when, we've been talking about the landowner, but now there's like a contract involved so what if they sell it and then, at some point, like, I trust that the legal protections are there, but it's just like, what if they're like, oh no, we're not trading it anymore, just want to make sure that it's not. So, and again, I trust this opinion, but if there's one piece of information that maybe wasn't known and we can just ask the question. I'd rather err on the side of asking that.
Any further questions or items for discussion? Okay, so the administrative recommendation is to approve the land swap as outlined in detached land exchange agreement. Do we have a motion? A motion?
I'll make the motion to approve it contingent on that it's not a wholesale agreement, and Laura's answered our questions. I don't know. It's kind of a weird motion, but.
Okay, Dr. Lund seconds. Dr. Lund, question?
So if they want it to be a wholesale, then it'll have to come back to this board at July 22nd or some meeting then, based on that motion, if this motion is approved. Am I correct in my thinking?
Yes, because it would have to be disclosed as such. I just don't know, without having the other documentation of what their agreement is, I don't know how we can do a three-way swap type thing.
Okay. Well, I support the motion then.
And inherent in that is that Betis will be the designated landowner. Contractually, they'll be able to execute the agreement just between us and them, correct?
Which it says they're the owner and developer here, but technically they're not the current owner. So that's why I'm just confused as to how that agreement currently works out.
Right, and I think we all kind of share some reservation along those lines. I just want to make sure that the contingency of not being a wholesale is inherently means Betis owns it.
Mm-hmm.
And just the two of us can do the deal.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Okay, so we have a motion and a second of that motion. Take a roll call vote on that.
Lund,
Yes.
Gockler,
Yes.
Berger, Berger,
Yes.
Larson,
Yes.
Flynn,
Yes.
Clevin,
No. No.
Palmesino,
Yes.
Anderson,
Yes.
7 yes, 1 no, 1 absent.
Motion passes. Moving on, item number 6H, consideration of bid for HVAC filtration services for fiscal year '25. Mr. Bombach.
Yes, members of the board, we have publicized, per the requirements, North Dakota Century Code 151934, seeking qualified vendors to provide filters for our HVAC units across the district. We received one written response from Techniques Filtration. They were the incumbent bidder. They have done this, provided this service to the school district for a number of years now. They came back with a response that indicated no price increase from fiscal year '24 into fiscal year '25. I have attached for your review the actual bid summary, and the administrative recommendation is to approve Techniques Filtration as a supplier for district HVAC filters.
Any questions for Mr. Bombach? If none, administrative recommendation is to approve Techniques Filtration as the supplier for district HVAC filters. Do we have a motion? Motion by Amber. Second by Bill. Take a roll call vote.
Flynn,
Yes.
Larson,
Yes.
Berger,
Yes.
Lund,
Yes.
Gockler,
Yes.
Clevin,
Yep.
Palmesino, Anderson,
Yes.
8 yes, 0 no, 1 absent.
Okay, motion passes. Item 6I, consideration of bids for prime milk vendor for fiscal year '25. Mr. Bombach again.
Yes, thank you. We've gone through a similar process as just mentioned, citing North Dakota Century Code, but this time for our prime milk vendor to the school district. And working with our child nutrition director, Wendy Mankey, we put out and solicited responses. We did receive 2 written responses, one from Cass Clay Creamery, who is our incumbent in this situation. They currently provide milk for fiscal year '24, and someone new, Prairie Farms, new to us that is. They certainly have a presence in North Dakota. After reviewing both bids, both were deemed responsible, and Prairie Farms offered a better pricing across the items solicited. We also, because they were new to us, followed up and reached out to adjacent school districts and Grand Forks businesses that currently utilize this vendor, and all provided reputable, so what I'm looking for, background check references, thank you. And so with that, coming from both myself and Wendy, the Director of Child Nutrition, administrative recommendation is to award the bid to Prairie Farms and permit administration to negotiate the full service contract starting for fiscal year '25.
Any questions for Mr. Bombach? If no questions, do we have a motion? Amber, motion by Amber. Second by Mr. Clevin. Take a roll call vote.
Palmesino,
Yes.
Clevin,
Yes.
Flynn,
Yes.
Larson,
Yes.
Berger,
Yes.
Gottler,
Yes.
Lund,
Yes.
Anderson,
Yes.
8 yes, 0 no, 1 absent.
Motion passes. On to the next item on the agenda under 7A is announcements. Any announcements tonight?
Just 2 quick ones. Want to welcome again Mr. Clevin to the board this evening and thank him for his campaign and for the election process. Secondly, immediately following this meeting, we will have the notice of the annual Building Authority meeting, and our production manager in the booth only needs about 10 seconds to reset, so there wouldn't be any reason to take a break. So if we could move right into that meeting once this is adjourned, then I will facilitate and pro tem that until we have a president seated. Thank you.
Any other announcements, Mr. Bombach?
I would say just make sure you get your spot tickets. Grease and Joseph and the Technicolor Dreamcoat are on stage, so make sure you get those if there are any left. So kudos to Spot, and I hope it all goes really well for them.
Any other announcements? Okay, if none, board requests for future consideration. Dr. Lund?
I feel like Cynthia's channeling me with this request, so busing update, maybe get a plan, see how smoothly is it going to work this fall and stuff. And it doesn't matter if it's at a board meeting or Friday Focus, whatever. I just wonder if I'm assuming we've got plans in place and how it's going and stuff. So thank you.
Thank you. Other board requests? Okay, if none, school board meetings, how did we do? I think we did quite well. Thank you. And with that, we are adjourned.